I don't think they're scary. I think certain teams they're going to play really, really good against. I think the Celtics match up well.
Celtics are one of them.
They don't have a traditional big in the middle that can control the inside. So they're going to play good against certain teams. I think they're 2-2 now with this small ball. But really the person that benefits the most from this, and you got to watch this, if you look at, is Russell Westbrook. Yep. He's getting the opportunity to be very dominant, get back to the Westbrook that we saw in OKC, the way he's getting to the rim. And actually he's even better. You got to think about it. He's averaging 5 points more this year than he did last year. He's shooting the ball better from the field, about 4 or 5 percentage points better. Obviously, he doesn't shoot the three well. That's still in the under. But now I love the fact he's got his free throw shooting is back up there.
Which it had to be. Yeah. That made no sense when his free throw shooting went in the tank.
So this has opened it up for him, and I think now that he's making free throws, I think he's more confident. His field goal percentage went up. I think last year he got caught up in shooting threes and in between shots, but now that he's got his free throw shooting back together, he's going to the basket. Harden is going to be Harden. I mean, last night we saw the Harden that we saw a month ago, getting to the free throw line, making a few threes, really being dominant, and they're going to benefit every other game. It's just different matchups is going to be different. But when they get out-rebounded by 12 and 15, they're going to lose most of those games because they're not a knockdown three-point shooting team. I mean, they made 13 last night, but I think they attempted close to 53s last night.
They're gonna lead the league every year in three-point makes, but not be close in three-point percentage. That's your point. They're just gonna
like me. I'm a value shooter.
Yeah, volume shooter. Absolutely right. You're gonna have a bunch of makes, but maybe a lot more misses than you'd like. All right, let me start with Russ. It is an unbelievable stat because Russ started this tear before they moved on from Capella. Because you mentioned it's 4 games without Capella, 2-2. Easily could be 3-1 because that Bogdanovich 3 at the buzzer stole a win from him. Great shot by him. But over Russ's last 10 games, he's got 234 points in the paint. Only Shaq in the last 20 years has more points in the paint over a 10-game stretch. That's a shocking statistic. That means Giannis hasn't done it. LeBron hasn't done it. None of the Dwight in his prime. I know Dwight wasn't a big high-volume scorer, but he was still doing everything in the paint. So Russ was getting back to being the best version of Russell Westbrook before this trade, and this trade obviously opens up the court for him. What he had never played with in OKC was a bunch of shooters around him. Obviously, he had Kevin Durant around him, a great shooter, but he never had great spacing. And in OKC, you always had either Perk or Steven Adams, or you had some big clogging the paint. Where Russ is going to be at his best, ball in his hands, ability to attack, and if the defense collapses, kick it out. So I think that's important. The other important thing is this. There are certain players that against this Rockets team just become unplayable. Our friend of the show and a guy who I once upon a time poked fun at, but I like him as a guy, Enes Kanter, just unplayable last night. Like, okay, you're not going to be able to move your feet. You are going to be played off the court. They almost, in that game against the Jazz, Rudy Gobert, who's a dominant big defensively, had his struggles because he's a man without a country on the defensive end, which is where his value is if they're going to pull you away from the rim. So this obviously is the plan. This is the upside of the plan. And the defense last night, until the fourth quarter, was playing exceptionally well against Boston. The question for the Rockets is it sustainable over 2 months? Not 2 weeks, but 2 months, especially when you do have to go against Jokic potentially in round 1, LeBron and Anthony Davis in round 2. Like, the different bigs you're going to have to go up against, is it sustainable for them?
Well, this is a team you never want to play in the playoffs, obviously, because with the 2 superstars, both of them are very capable of winning the game by themselves in a playoff series. So you don't want to play against them. But I just think if they can get the wrong matchup. And if you get the wrong matchup, they're going to be bounced early in the playoffs again, unfortunately. And that can be the Lakers if they don't get seeded right. You play the Lakers early on, maybe the first or second round. You're not going to beat the Lakers. Anthony Davis is too good defensively. They'll figure it out. LeBron James, they can play small ball too, with a big guy like Anthony Davis who's agile, who can control the inside. So it's just a matter of the matchups, who they get. I think obviously it's going to be an exciting brand of basketball to get Westbrook back playing at the level that he's playing at right now. And nobody's really talking about him. You know, Damian Lillard's been on this run, but he's also been on this tear, too, over the last 10, 12 games himself. And it's fun to see. And it's fun to see that he took initiative to work on this game and get back to doing what we know he was capable of doing, getting his free throw percentage back to 80%, getting back driving to the basket.
And not shooting so many threes.
He's shooting 2 or 3 threes less this year, too, as well.
But it's not just a playoff matchup and playoff style that you're talking about. On a nightly basis, it's about who their opponents are, right? If they play opponent like last night where they have the ability to dominate in the paint, who doesn't have a big that can go up against him, that's where they shine. But since Clint Capella left, the teams that do have, I mean, that's kind of sort of why they're 2-2. Besides that,
I guess the thing
doesn't it depend on who their opponent is?
But there's not many dominant bigs left. I mean, this is one of the reasons why, to go back to the previous discussion about Joel Embiid, why it's frustrating that he didn't take a bigger leap this year, is unless you're playing the Bucks, the Sixers, the Lakers, who is the team with the dominant traditional big that can really punish you here? Now, I know Jokic is a very good center, but he does a lot of his stuff finesse and passing and with a soft, kind of feathery touch. So it's not a guy who's going to take you down into the paint. Gobert is a really good defender, but the Rockets, if they play the Jazz again, if the Jazz want to post Rudy Gobert up 30 times, they're going to say, man, thank you, go right ahead. To me, the bigger story, and it's, again, don't want to have too much recency bias, but it is about Russ. This is the bet my friend Daryl Morey made on Russ, that Russ would have more nights like this than he had at the bad nights at the beginning of the season. That Chris Paul, as great as he's been for Oklahoma City, and he has been great for them, that Chris Paul didn't have these explosive nights really left in him, and that Russ can win you a game in the playoffs by himself. And they're just a nightmare. If you draw this team, it's like, really? For 2 weeks, I've got to, if I'm a backcourt player, I'm either going up against James Harden, who's going to trick me into fouling him, or Russell Westbrook, who's going to be going downhill 100 miles an hour the whole game. I think the trade, Antoine, just added more variance to him. I think their upside got higher, but I do think, to your point, a bad matchup, they're more likely to be upset as well. So it's kind of more boom or bust for the Rockets.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to play them, though. They're the most dangerous team in the Western Conference that can make a run and really make some noise if things fall their way. And if Westbrook and Harden are on their game, they're going to be a tough out.
I don't know if the seeding will fall this way, but if the Rockets trip up a bit and fall down to the 6th line, a Clippers-Rockets first-round series could be exceptional because the Clippers don't really have the big that can punish you, but you could put Kawhi on Harden if you wanted to. There's a lot of interesting things you could do there. That could be one of the better first-round matchups we've seen in the NBA in a very long time.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.